morning, ladies and gentlemen. Is that okay, sir? Yeah. Okay. What I will try to do in the few next minutes is to offer you 5 concepts. And I think these 5 concepts can show how the internet culture will change in the 21st century. And it will change from topics of knowledge management to issues of identity management. And I will, first of all, tell you what these 5 concepts are and then explain them in some, I hope, very simple words. The first concept will be serious play. And serious play is a very interesting concept that explains what the American poet Donald Hall meant when he spoke of the paradise of work. I think this is very interesting, what this could be, the paradise of work. It has obviously to do with the new conditions of work in the internet culture. The second concept will be self-design. Tom Peters, the management guru Tom Peters, once spoke about brand yourself. And this is exactly what self-design is about. And I think the internet culture is a wonderful platform for self-design and the branding of yourself. The third concept will be identity management, and it's concerned with social wealth. This has very much to do with meaning, with connections, with linking, with social networks, and with community building. And I think social worth might be a sort of escape out of the financial crisis. So if we don't have enough money, maybe we have enough social wealth to live in the 21st century. The fourth concept will be attention management. And this has something to do with the interrelation of ignorance and trust. More and more we know less and less, which means of course we have information at your fingertips, but we realize that to more know is also to know less. To know more is to realize that that there are huge areas of knowledge that we do not know. So ignorance is one of the most important problems, and how to manage ignorance. And obviously we need trust to manage the problem of ignorance. And the last issue will be what we call linking value, which will be the most important added value, the surplus value of the 21st century. And it has something to do with the logic of networks. And I will refer to a very interesting concept of the American sociologist Mark Granovetter, a very important essay and article with the title The Strength of Weak Ties. And I will try to explain what that means, the strength of weak ties, which sounds at first sight to be a little bit of a paradox. It seems to be a paradox, but it's a very important insight into the logic of networks. So, point number 1 is serious play. And in the 21st century, communication and mobility are the most important factors of productivity. And if you speak about communication, I think you have to keep in mind that it's not only the productivity of communication that counts, but also the socio pleasure of communication. It's just fun to communicate, and especially if you look at youth cultures, you can only explain the enormous success of new media technology by focusing on the fun of communication, of the social pleasure of communication. Of course, we as business people and scientists are more concerned with the productivity of communication, but fun is a very important element too, the social pleasure of communication. And therefore, successful people in the 21st century must develop skills of flexibility and of availability. They should be scientifically curious, they should be entrepreneurially courageous, and they should be politically adaptive. And there will be no longer any difference between working time and free time. I mean, for successful people, there will be no longer any difference between working time and free time. As the poet Donald Hall once put it, absorbedness is the paradise of work. And this is exactly the experience that very successful people have. They are absorbed in their work, so there's no longer any need to get out of work into free time or whatever you will call that. So the paradise of work, of course, this is a wonderful paradox. Until now, work was the punishment of expulsion from paradise. Workaholics nowadays emphasize that the paradise of work is not about needs or indulgences, but about work that is enjoyable. And modern society is very unjust in matters concerning work, because the more enjoyable work is, the better it is remunerated. You get more money, the more you enjoy your work. This has something to do with the new media technologies, because the tools you get and you buy, the software tools, for instance, are also toys. You cannot longer distinguish between toys and tools. And you have to learn to play with these tools to use them very effectively. So I think the most important way to understand the internet culture of the 21st century is to play with the tools. And therefore, children and the young people are the avant-garde of this development, because they like to play. And to play is the best way to understand what is possible and what is happening in all these new media. So we have the identity of tools and toys, and we have the identity of play and work. And this is exactly what Donald Hall meant when he talked about the paradise of work. Number two is self-design. And in the 21st century, I think the labor market will evolve into a personality market. Personal brands are humans who have learned from successfully branded products how to catch consumers' attention. And this is exactly what Tom Peters meant when he spoke about brand you or brand yourself. Make yourself a brand. Be a brand. If you keep that in mind, you will have a better understanding of what is happening in the famous social networks of the internet. Social networks are mostly about impression management, and they are about self-design. And the latest form of self-design and of impression management, of course, is demonstrated to us by YouTube and similar formats and similar platforms. And as YouTube itself put it, broadcast yourself. This is the message of YouTube. And Christine Rosen sees a development here from broadcasting via narrowcasting to egocasting. And this is exactly what YouTube offers. You can broadcast your ego. And such formats as YouTube and as MySpace, for instance, show us very pure forms of a public display of identity. And I think it's exactly 100 years after Oscar Wilde coined the term self-culture that we are entering into an age of self-design. Instead of discovering the true self, the people, and especially the young people nowadays, try to create an interesting self. So obviously the search for the true self was not very successful in the last decades, so it might be more successful and interesting to look for a new designed